Okay, I'm going to go over a couple of these problems. I'm going to go over, I believe I chose 6, which is almost half the test to go over. So let's look at number 4. Um, Number 4, we have division, but we have addition and subtraction on the top and bottom. So I'm going to deal with my top of this fraction first. So we have A plus B over C. Well, what's a common denominator? Well, you can make them both with C. So I would have C plus C. Don't have to change the B over C. That already had C as a denominator. But in order to change A, remember that's over 1. In order to change the denominator to C, we have to multiply that by C over C. All right, so here we're going to have CA plus B over C. Now I can change this entire thing to CA plus B all over C. That's the top. And there might be other ways to do this I'm not thinking of. Here's one way you can do it. All right, the bottom of the fraction is going to be D minus B over C. Again, our common denominator would be C for both of them. So our B over C does not have to change. In order to change D over 1, we have to multiply by C over C, which makes us CD. So that means our bottom now is going to be CD minus B all over C. All right, so that's our bottom. Okay, so now we have a top and a bottom. Now I can write it as CA plus B all over C divided by CD minus B all over C. That's just rewriting it. Now I'm going to write it as multiplication and flip the second one. So CA plus B all over C times C over CD minus B. All right, so as we go ahead and do that, we know that we can cancel across, not across, but diagonally. And we end up with, on top we have, so this is just a 1, that's a 1. So I have CA plus B all over, because that's times 1, so it's just CA plus B times 1, which is CA plus B. And then on the bottom we have 1 times CD minus B. So it's going to be CD minus B. Now at this point you might think, well, can I factor? Well, there's no factor you can take out. You cannot do this. That is not legal. So this is no, don't do that. You can't factor the C or cancel the C, so we have this. But you might be thinking, well, I don't see that in my answers. However, if you look at okay, well, we can see them all anyway. So if I look at CA plus B, this top, remember, AC and CA are the same thing. So this top is the same as this. All right, and our bottom is the same, so our answer is C. Okay, there we go on that one. Okay, number 5 is pretty simple. I'm going to rewrite it down here, 3 over the square root of 3a squared b. The bottom, remember, this is the second root, so this a squared can already be broken down. So this actually is going to come out and just be a. So I'm going to have 3 over a times the square root of 3b. So I want to get rid of that radical in the denominator. I'm going to see if I can do that. Okay, so what I can do is multiply this by what's under the radical. So I'm going to multiply by radical 3b all over radical 3b. Remember, that's just a form of 1, so we could do that. So on top, we're going to have 3 radical 3b all over a, and then 3b, radical 3b times radical 3b just gives me 3b. So I'd probably write this as 3 square root of 3b. And I probably put the number first and AB like that. Okay, now I can cancel the 3 and the 3. Remember, they're all being multiplied, so in this case I can do that. It's going to be 3b all over AB, and that's going to be our answer, which is C. Okay, number 7, we have x to the first power. So x to the negative first. And there's a number of ways to do this. You could just write it as x. Remember, you have the same base, so I can just look at this part with the negative 5. That's really going to be x to the negative 1. Remember, when you have the same base, you subtract the exponent. So it's really negative 1 minus, right? Because negative 1 is on the top, negative 5 is on the bottom, so it's really negative 1 minus a negative 5, which is going to equal a positive 4, I believe, right? So on top, we're going to have x to the 4th. So I dealt with the x's now. So I combined those, or dealt with those, and gave me x to the 4th. Now we have y to the 4th, and y to the negative 1. Well, remember, same base, you subtract the exponent. So it's going to be 4, that's here, minus a negative 1, because that's on the bottom. That's going to equal 5. So we're going to have x to the 4th, y to the 5th, all over, need to erase this now. So I dealt with my x's, dealt with my y's, and my 3 is still on the bottom. And so that answer is, all right. Okay, number 9, we have a fraction, 2 fractions being added, but they don't have the same denominator. It's tricky because these look very similar, but they are not the same. They're very close though. If you notice, actually, matter of fact, I think in class we did a problem exactly, I don't know if it was this exact problem, but it was very close. So if you look back in your notes, you should see a problem very similar, but I'm going to go over it anyway. If you look at this one on the right, what you can do is multiply this by negative 1 over negative 1, which remember is a form of 1, so you're not changing the value of the fraction. So I'm going to have 3y over 2y minus 6 plus, now I'm going to have a negative 9 over, now when you multiply this negative 1 by this, we talked about how that just changes the sign of everything. So instead of a positive 6, it's going to be a negative 6. Instead of a negative 2y, it's going to be plus 2y. So I can write that as 2y minus 6, right? Because I have a minus 6 here, and then a plus 2y. So now I can write this as 3y minus 9 all over 2y minus 6. And that looks like my answer, right? Right here. Not too fast, though. That's not my answer. I can keep simplifying. I can factor. The top would be 3 times y minus 3. The bottom would be 2 times y minus 3. So I'm going down with smart y minus 3. Now I can go ahead and cancel. They're being multiplied. So I just end up with 3 over 2. All right, so that's that. Okay, number 10, I was surprised so many people did not get this right. A lot of people did the greatest common factor, but they did not know what to do after that. So let's look. Greatest common factor would be a. So I'd have a times 10x squared minus 23x minus 5. And I would now try and factor all this. Now it's a little bit more complicated because you have the 10 right here. It's easier when it's a 1, but remember, we can do slide and divide. So remember, we're going to multiply these, so we're going to have a. Remember, a is still a factor, so don't forget about that a. I'm going to deal with all this over here. So we're going to have x squared minus 23x minus 50. Now can I factor that? Remember what two numbers multiply to give me negative 50? So multiply and then add up to this. Alright? So we have x plus minus 25 and x plus 2. Now you can't forget that last part, which is to divide by what you multiplied by in the beginning, which is this 10. Remember, so I need to divide this by 10, divide this by 10, so we get x minus 25 over 10 reduces to 5 over 2. And then this one, x plus 1 over 5. Now remember, if you still have a denominator after you simplify, you have to put this up here, put this up here, so we end up with 2x minus 5 and 5x plus 1. And don't forget about your a. Remember, a is still a factor, so alright, so that is completely factored. And the last one. Alright. So let's write these side by side. So I'm going to do 4 minus x squared plus 7x plus 12 divided by 2x minus 4 over x plus 3. Okay, so I'm going to rewrite this as multiplication. So I'm going to have 4 minus x squared all over x squared plus 7x plus 12 times x plus 3 all over 2x minus 4. Alright, now I'm going to go ahead and start to factor. So it might be helpful for this one to factor out a negative 1. If I do factor out a negative 1, I'm left with x squared minus 4 over x squared plus 7x. Well, let's try and factor the bottom. So the bottom would be x plus 4, x plus 3, and times x plus 3, and then the bottom would be 2 times x minus 2. Alright, now this top part now, over here, can now would be, don't forget your negative 1, you have to keep that as a factor, but now we can have x minus 2, x plus 2. If you had gone from the beginning and did 2 minus x, 2 plus x, you could not have canceled unless you multiplied by negative 1, or brought out that negative 1. So we have x plus 4 times x plus 3 times x plus 3 all over 2 times x minus 2. Now I can start to cancel. Cancel with this. Choose a different color to cancel. Cancel, 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 cancel. So this is 1, 1, 1, 1. So on top I'm left with negative x plus 2 all over 2 times x plus 4. And I think that looks good as far. Hopefully I didn't forget anything. You could also multiply that out and you have negative x minus 2. So if you wrote it like this, negative x minus 2 over 2x plus 8, that'd be okay. So that's okay also. All right, and that's it for that.